there is a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call
Ireland. You know, that's a quote that I'm hearing a lot lately, and I'm seeing it being thrown around a lot lately too, on Twitter and various live streams, and even out in the real world too. And it's that we are living in an episode of the Twilight Zone, and it's quite accurate for the times, because it seems most of the supreme truths, you know, morally or ethically, that have helped society withstand the test of time, they're all being turned on their fucking heads now. You know, even very recently, there's several things that you could look at. You know, the irony of them is just something else. And in particular, you know, you have the story of the young Cork lad there a couple of weeks ago, who got his face slashed up and got stabbed in the kidneys a couple of times by this black lad because he refused to give him €2 for the bus. And the good people of Ireland, no political party, but just independent, good-natured people online, had decided to set up a GoFundMe for this lad. And of course, a certain prick that everybody knows from the publicly funded NGO sector came along, and several of his Antifa cohorts decided to propagandise this charity that was being set up for this young lad, just to bring a bit of closure and a bit of restitution to him and his family after this vicious assault, this vicious racially motivated assault. And this prick gets the fucking charity closed down, and they seize it as some sort of political victory over the right, when all they've done is stop a young lad from getting a few bob to help maybe bring some closure to what happened to him. And they call in the Cork FM, or 94 FM, it's one of the radio stations down there. They're putting out propaganda that it was set up by far right cohorts, and that the charity was being politicised, you know, to push an alt-right movement. And that couldn't have been further from the truth. You had people who wanted to donate because they heard about this vicious, racially motivated assault. And of course, the Irish left can't have them or their agenda looking bad, so, you know, they got to kind of politicise it themselves and tear it down. And they seize this as a victory, when they're all about supposedly benevolence and tolerance, and yet they decide to get a fucking charity closed down for this young lad. And there you have Hazel Chu, an ethnic Asian, is supposedly set to become Lord Mayor of Dublin, and this is a woman who's repeatedly desecrated on the words of Padraig Pearse, the very man who proclaimed the Irish Republic. She has been fortunate enough to be born in and actually now grow up into a position of power in this country, but yet she can't preach racism enough in this country. And in Varadkar, you know, between fucking quoting Terminator and Mean Girls in his political speeches, it honestly feels like the elites in this country are just trying to troll us. They're basically trying to troll the Irish people, and it's not even about being subtle or about, you know, masquerading it as something else anymore. It's just, the Irish people have proved they're not going to do anything. Let's see how much we can get away with. Let's just see how ridiculous and farce this never-ending episode of the Twilight Zone can get. We have people policing and shaming the shit out of each other over not taking complete by-the-book COVID prevention measures. You know, it's treated like this apocalyptic event. However, as soon as a black guy 4,000 miles away is killed by a corrupt and, I think, insufficiently trained cop, the Irish left and its black components can't take to the streets quick enough in the thousands to protest something which occurred to one individual on the far side of the world, essentially undoing, if not undermining, the very preventative measures the Irish people have been taking for the last 3 fucking months, and undermining the very measures that were put in place and that were heavily policed for the last few months. And if you weren't familiar with the Irish media before this, you'd be expecting them to be calling for criticism on the Irish left and BLM for doing this in the middle of a fucking pandemic. Nope, it's thoroughly praised by the media. Meanwhile, your average OAP still can't go to mass. You know, it's being heavily policed. Meanwhile, this is publicly acknowledged in a great way in the papers, the fact that you have thousands of people like flooding the streets in the middle of this pandemic. And then on top of all of this, white people are all but too happy to cuck and simp themselves out to the black community by assisting in their vandalism of statues and monuments that are in any way representational of white people. Now, this is particularly happening in America, but it started to happen in Ireland, and it's been happening in England too. And white communities are all but too happy to grab a broom and sweep up after a night of vandalism by BLM and Antifa, and then not even criticise the damage or harm that was done, but to actually then proceed to verbally back them up in their actions and condemn white nationalists who are calling out BLM's vandalism and the various white cuckery that goes along with it. And this is all happening in the backdrop of constant viral videos circulating online of the very same white people, often kids too, getting the shit beat out of them by blacks. If you're on Twitter, you'll see a lot of these videos. The context is quite clear. They're all purely racially motivated attacks of just anti-white hatred. And I was actually a bit surprised when George Floyd was killed. I was thinking this is the type of situation that could give BLM a serious platform to be heard and actually create a bit of good. But no, when life gives them lemons, instead of making fucking lemonade, they'd rather just squeeze the lemon juice into everybody else's eyes for some short-term victory. And a common question I see beginning to echo more and more within the dissident right is, at this stage, what's it actually going to take to red pill the normies? At this point, I don't think the tidal wave of grassroots movements made up of red-pilled nationalists is just going to suddenly rise up and sweep across the board and, create this change that many of us want. Like, I think that ship has sailed. If there was a catalyst to tip the momentum over in our favour and to make people finally go, right, enough is enough, then it's already passed. The catalyst has passed, and it's passed multiple times, considering the levels and types of violence and assault that you're seeing continue to mount on white people. And the fact that nothing has been done about it and there has been no retaliations. Like, people think that if we just let them get it out of their system and you just don't retaliate, it'll be reciprocated well and things will eventually just boil down and go back to normal. And it's not being received that way by the far left, by BLM, by Antifa. They're seeing white people's lack of response to these vicious attacks and vandalisms as weakness, and the levels and types of assaults are just steadily becoming more despicable and malevolent in their nature. Yeah, and at this point we're getting dangerously close to the point of a civil war, particularly in the US, if you're looking at it the way it's playing out. And it's getting to the stage whereby if people want this to stop and they want boundaries to be made distinctly clear with regards to their monuments, their property, their community safety and their fucking culture, then militias are going to have to be formed and swift violence will have to be returned to these attackers so long as they continue to just chastise communities like this. And it's getting near the point where white people are seriously going to have to grow a set of teeth. But that's it. It's just kind of a short video today, guys. I know I haven't put up much content now in the last few months. There's a few reasons for that, but I'm going to start making quicker, shorter videos because the editing and some of my other videos can take a lot of time, and I'm sure I'll do a couple of more well spoken and well edited videos in the future. But there'll be a lot of short, quick videos depending on what's going on in the political landscape, just to get content out there for you. That's it. I'll see you next time, guys. Take care.